The bell above the diner door rang when I stood up. Not loud, just enough to let the room know someone was leaving. I remember thinking how strange it was that the sound felt personal, like it belonged to me alone, like it was announcing something I wasn't ready for yet. I slid my phone into my pocket and reached for my jacket. The vinyl booth creaked when I moved, sticking slightly to the back of my legs. The air smelled like burnt coffee and lemon cleaner, the kind they use when they want a place to feel brighter than it really is. "Heading out?" the waitress asked. She'd been watching me longer than I realized. She stood behind the counter with her hands flat against the surface, fingers spread, like she was grounding herself. Her smile was there, polite, practiced, but it didn't reach her eyes. Those stayed steady on my face, searching for something I hadn't said. "Yeah," I said. "Just needed somewhere quiet." She nodded slowly, as if that confirmed something for her. I stepped toward the door. That's when I heard the lock. A soft, solid click. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just final. I turned around. The waitress was already there. Closer now. Too close for comfort. One hand rested on the deadbolt, the other still holding the receipt book she hadn't used all night. Her voice dropped. Gentle, but firm. "Promise you won't pass out." I laughed. Not because it was funny, because my body didn't know what else to do with that sentence. "Excuse me," I said. She didn't smile this time. "Promise me," she repeated. "If you feel dizzy, sit down. Don't fight it." The room felt suddenly smaller, like the walls had leaned in when I wasn't looking. "I'm fine," I said. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." Her eyes flicked to my hands, then to my face, then back to the door. "I'll unlock it in a minute," she said. "I just need you to listen first." That was the moment something shifted. Not fear. Not yet. Something quieter. The sense you get when you realize you've stepped into a story already in progress and missed the beginning. I hadn't planned to stop at that diner. I was driving home from a long day that didn't deserve its own memory. The kind of day that dissolves as soon as it's over. Traffic. Emails. A meeting that ran 10 minutes too long. I was tired in a dull, unremarkable way. Then the rain started. Hard. Sudden. The kind that blurs streetlights and makes every road feel unfamiliar. I saw the sign "Open 24 hours" glowing weakly through the downpour. The parking lot was empty except for my car and one truck parked crookedly near the back fence. I told myself I'd just go in, dry off, use the bathroom, maybe get a coffee, sit somewhere that wasn't my own head. The diner was almost empty when I walked in. One man asleep in a corner booth, hat tipped low over his eyes, a radio humming softly behind the counter. The waitress wiping down a clean surface with unnecessary focus. She looked up when I entered. Not startled, not curious, expectant. "Anywhere you like," she said. I chose the booth farthest from the door. I don't know why. Maybe habit, maybe instinct. Maybe because part of me wanted to disappear for a minute without fully leaving. She brought me coffee I hadn't ordered. "On the house," she said. "You look like you could use it." I should have said something then. I should have noticed the way she kept glancing at the clock, not to check the time, but like she was counting something down. Or how she never asked my name, but used it anyway. "You passing through?" she asked. "Yes," I said, without thinking. That answer seemed to relax her. Now, standing between me and the door, she looked anything but relaxed. "Look," I said carefully. "I really do need to go." "I know," she said. "That's why I locked it." My heartbeat had started to feel loud, heavy, like it was echoing off the tile floor. "Why?" I asked. She hesitated. Just long enough for my mind to fill the gap with possibilities it didn't want. "Because the last time," she said slowly. She didn't promise. A chill moved through me, not down my spine, but inward, like my body was folding in on itself. "The last time who?" I asked. She swallowed. "You." I shook my head. "You've got the wrong person." She studied my face again. Not my clothes, not my posture, my face. like she was comparing it to something only she could see. "That's what you said before," she replied. The rain outside had picked up. I could hear it pounding against the windows, blurring the world beyond the glass into streaks of gray and white. I took a step back. She didn't move. "I don't feel well," I said. Not as a lie. Not entirely. Her shoulders softened. "Okay, that's okay. Sit down. I'm leaving," I said. Her hand tightened on the lock. "You didn't last time either," she said quietly. The words landed wrong. Last time. I searched her face for humor, for exaggeration, for anything that would let me categorize this as a misunderstanding or a bad joke. There was nothing. Just concern. Real, worn concern. The kind you don't fake because it costs too much. "What happened last time?" I asked. She closed her eyes briefly. When the door opened, she said, "You were already on the floor." My vision flickered, not dimmed, just softened. Like someone had turned the contrast down on the room. I grabbed the edge of the booth to steady myself. "Hey," she said gently. "There it is." I hated how calm she sounded. How ready. "I need you to listen to me," she continued. "Your body knows this place, even if your mind doesn't." "That doesn't make any sense," I whispered. She nodded. It didn't for her either. I realized then she wasn't looking at me the way people look at strangers. She was looking at me the way you look at someone you've already lost once and don't want to lose again. The man in the corner booth shifted in his sleep. The radio crackled, then went quiet. The silence that followed felt intentional. "Why didn't you call an ambulance?" I asked. Her mouth tightened. "Because she asked me not to." "She?" I repeated. "You," she said softly. A pressure bloomed behind my eyes. Not pain. Weight. Memories stirred, not images, not scenes, just sensations. Cold tile. A smell like bleach. Someone calling my name from very far away. "I don't remember you," I said. "That's okay," she replied. "You weren't supposed to." My knees weakened. She moved quickly, guiding me back into the booth, her hand steady against my arm. "Sit," she said. "Just breathe." I obeyed, more out of confusion than trust. "Promise me," she said again, meeting my eyes. "If you feel it coming on, you won't fight it." "What happens if I do?" I asked. Her answer came too fast. "You wake up somewhere you don't recognize," she said. "And this time I might not be here." The door behind her rattled as the wind pushed against it. Locked. Solid. Unforgiving. I pressed my palms flat against the table and felt something carved into the wood's shallow grooves. Old scratches, like tally marks worn smooth by time. "How many times?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, barely audible. "Enough." My breath caught. Outside, lightning split the sky, briefly illuminating the diner in stark white. For a fraction of a second, I saw it not clearly. Not fully, but enough. The booth, the floor, me, lying there, and her standing over me, saying my name like a prayer she didn't know would be answered. The light vanished. The diner returned to its dim glow, and the words echoed in my head, heavier now than before. Her words had hit harder than I expected. Her words were still hanging in the air when she slowly pulled a chair toward herself and sat down across from me. Not too close. Not too far. Exactly the kind of distance people choose when they don't want to scare you, but don't want you to run either. "My name is Ruth," she said. I couldn't remember if I'd told her my name or not, but she said it anyway, perfectly, with complete certainty, like taking something old off a shelf and putting it back where it belonged. "I've known your name for a long time," she said, as if she'd heard the question forming in my head. My stomach tightened slightly. "What do you mean?" I asked. She didn't answer directly. "When you came here the first time," she said, "you chose this booth too." My fingers pressed harder into the edge of the table. "That couldn't have been that long ago," I said. "I haven't lived in this city very long." Ruth nodded. "That's exactly what you said then, too." She gestured toward my coffee, long since cold. "You took 2 sips," she said. "Then you stopped." I would remember that, I said, though my voice didn't carry the confidence I wanted it to. You weren't supposed to remember, she said again. This time, it made me angry. You keep saying that, I said, but you're not telling me why. Ruth took a deep breath. The kind of breath only people take when they've buried something inside themselves too many times. Because when you start to remember, she said, you pass out. My heart stuttered. A medical issue? I asked. Some kind of condition? She tilted her mouth slightly. That's what the doctor said too. What doctor? I asked immediately. This time, she hesitated. And in that pause, I realized she was controlling everything, my breathing, my questions, my fear, all of it. You didn't like him, she said finally. That should have sounded strange, but it didn't. It felt like some part of me had already been waiting for that answer. I went to the hospital? I asked. Ruth nodded. From here, she said. The ambulance came through that door. My eyes drifted toward the entrance without me meaning to. The lock was still in place. Solid. Silent. And you? I asked. What did you do? Ruth laced her fingers together. I held your hand, she said. Until they arrived. A faint tingling ran through my wrist. For no reason. And yet unmistakable. Did you call my family? I asked. A shadow crossed her face. No, she said. You told me not to. I did? Yes, she said. You said, if you pass out, don't call anyone. My throat went dry. Why? I asked. Ruth lifted her eyes. This time, she wasn't just looking at my face. She was looking at the part of me I was hiding from myself. Because you were afraid, she said. Afraid of what? I asked. She didn't answer. And in that silence, I felt it for the first time. That maybe this wasn't the first time I'd asked that question. My head began to feel heavy. Like the air in the room was slowly being drained away. Ruth, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, tell me the truth. Why was I here? She glanced at the clock, then the window, then back at me. You were looking for someone, she said. I didn't plan to meet anyone here, I said. That's what you told me, she replied gently. My fingers started to tremble. Who? I asked. Who was I looking for? Ruth closed her eyes for a moment, and I knew whatever was coming wouldn't be light. Yourself, she said. The word settled into my chest like something painful finally falling into place. You said you felt like someone else, Ruth continued. Like you were living your life, but not inside it. My head lowered toward the table. Memories stirred again, not as images, not as scenes. Just feelings. An unfamiliar city. An unfamiliar home. And a constant sense that I belonged somewhere else. I think I'm losing my mind, I whispered. Ruth shook her head immediately. No, she said. You're painfully aware. She pulled her chair slightly closer. You made me promise something else, she said. What? I asked. If you ever came back here, she said, and didn't remember anything, I was supposed to stop you. My breathing quickened. That's why you locked the door, I said. Yes, Ruth said. That's why. The man in the corner booth coughed. A small sound, but in that room, it was loud. I should leave, I said. Ruth raised her hand. Not yet, she said. Not yet. You can't keep me here, I said. She gestured toward the door. You're not being held, she said. You're staying. And somehow, that felt true. My body was sitting there, but something inside me was moving elsewhere. Downward, deeper, to the place where things are forgotten on purpose. What happened to me? I asked. Ruth's voice dropped to nearly a whisper. You saw something, she said. And then your body couldn't keep up. Here? I asked. She shook her head. No, she said. Before here. The light in the diner blurred again. Ruth, I said, if I pass out again, I'll be right here, she said instantly, with the certainty of someone who had already stood in this exact place before. But if you don't, she added softly, then this time you'll remember. My eyes fell back to the wooden table. The grooves. The marks. Like someone had been counting time. I think, I said quietly. I've been here more than once. Ruth didn't respond. Her silence was the answer. And in that moment, I understood for the first time. The door hadn't just been locked. Something else had been locked too. Ruth didn't move when I said it. She didn't flinch. Didn't correct me. Didn't soften it. She just sat there, hands folded loosely in front of her, watching my face the way nurses do when they're waiting to see if a patient is about to fade. You don't have to say anything right now, she said. That was the first time she offered me a choice. It didn't feel like one. The diner had gone strangely still. Not silent, I could hear the low hum of the refrigerator behind the counter, the faint tick of the clock above the grill, but paused. Like everything was waiting for me to catch up to something I was late for. How long? I asked. Ruth tilted her head slightly. How long? What? How long have you known me? I said. She glanced down at the table, tracing one of the old grooves with her finger. The motion was small, careful. A little over a year, she said. The number landed wrong. A year? I repeated. That's not possible. I know, she said. That's what you said. I swallowed. I would remember being here a year ago. Ruth's mouth tightened, not unkindly. You don't remember a lot of things from that time. I felt a flicker of irritation. You keep saying that like it explains everything. She met my eyes. It explains enough. No, I said quietly. It doesn't. She held my gaze for a long moment. Then she stood. The movement startled me more than I expected. Chairs scraped loudly against the floor in my head, even though the sound was barely there. Ruth walked behind the counter, pulled open a drawer, and took something out. A small notebook. Soft cover. Corners bent. The kind you carry until it starts to fall apart and then keep carrying anyway. She brought it back and set it on the table between us. I don't usually do this, she said. Do what? I asked. She pushed the notebook toward me. Show anyone. I didn't touch it right away. What is it? I asked. Ruth exhaled slowly. It's what I wrote down after you left. My fingers hovered over the cover. Left? I said. I thought you said, I collapsed. You did, she said. Eventually. The word sat there, heavy. Eventually, I opened the notebook. The handwriting was neat but rushed, as if she'd been afraid of losing something if she slowed down. Dates filled the margins. Times. Short sentences broken off mid-thought. She asked again. Didn't recognize me. Same booth. Same look when it started. My stomach turned. This isn't, I began, then stopped. Halfway down the page, I saw my name. Written clearly. Confidently. Underlined once. You told me to write it, Ruth said. In case you came back and I doubted myself. I told you to? I asked. She nodded. You were very specific. My chest felt tight. Not panic pressure. What else did I tell you? I asked. Ruth hesitated. Then reached out and turned the page herself. You said, she read softly, if I ask to leave before the shaking stops, don't let me. I laughed once. Sharp. Disbelieving. That doesn't sound like me. Ruth didn't argue. She just kept reading. If I forget who I am, she continued, tell me where I was sitting. That matters. My eyes dropped to the booth. The cracked vinyl. The indentation where countless bodies had leaned back, pressed forward, waited. Why would that matter? I asked. Ruth closed the notebook. You never said, she replied. You just said it did. I felt suddenly very tired. Not physically, emotionally. Like I'd been carrying something heavy without realizing it, and now someone had pointed it out. Did anyone else see this? I asked. Ruth shook her head. Not like this. What about the man? I gestured toward the corner booth. He was here last time? Her expression shifted just slightly. No, she said. He comes and goes. Something about the way she said it made my skin prickle. You're sure? I asked. Yes, she said quickly. I'm sure. I made a mental note of that answer. The lock on the door caught my eye again. Why didn't you tell me any of this sooner? I asked. Ruth leaned back in her chair. Because last time, she said, you begged me not to. The word begged felt wrong in my mouth. I don't beg, I said. You did, she replied gently, not out loud, but I heard it anyway. I rubbed my temples. What did I beg you for? I asked. Ruth looked at the clock again, then away. Time, she said. I don't know how long we sat there after that. Minutes stretched in odd ways, folding in on themselves. The rain outside softened to a steady whisper, like it was listening. Tell me about the doctor, I said eventually. Ruth stiffened. You said his name, she replied. More than once. What was it? I asked. She shook her head. I'm not the one who should say it. That doesn't make sense, I said. It will, she replied. Just not yet. Frustration flared, quick and hot. You can't keep doing that, I said. You can't keep telling me half things and expecting me to be okay with it. Ruth met my anger with something steadier. I'm not expecting you to be okay, she said. I'm expecting you to stay conscious. The word hit harder than I wanted it to. I took a slow breath. Did I say anything else? I asked. Ruth nodded. You asked me if I believed you, she said. And did you? I asked. She didn't answer immediately. Yes, she said finally, but I didn't understand you. About what? I asked. She lowered her voice. You said you thought someone had mistaken you for yourself. I stared at her. That doesn't even... I know, she said. That's what I told you. What did I say back? I asked. Ruth swallowed. You said, that's what scares me. The room felt colder. Ruth, I said slowly, what exactly happened to me before I came here the first time? She stood again, walked to the window, and looked out at the rain. I don't know, she said. You wouldn't tell me. Why not? She turned back to me. Because you said if you said it out loud, it would become real. Something shifted in my chest. A memory not clear, not whole, but close enough to hurt. A hallway, fluorescent lights, a door that shouldn't have been open. I gasped. Ruth was at my side instantly. Sit, she said, placing a steady hand on my shoulder. I am sitting, I whispered. My vision blurred again, edges softening. Breathe with me, she said, just like before. I hated how familiar that sounded. I focused on the table, the grooves, the scratches. How many times? I asked. Ruth didn't pretend not to understand. 3, she said. This is the 3rd. My heart sank. Did I leave the other times? I asked. Yes, she said, but not the way you think. I looked up. What does that mean? Ruth's face was pale now. You always walked out, she said, on your feet, talking, fully awake. That doesn't sound so bad, I said. It was, she replied, because you didn't remember any of it. A cold realization slid into place. You're saying, I started. Yes, she said. Every time you leave, you reset. I pressed my lips together, fighting the rising nausea. Why am I back? I asked. Ruth hesitated. Then she said the last thing I expected. Because this time, she said, you didn't leave alone. The words settled slowly. What do you mean? I asked. She looked toward the door, then back at me. There was someone with you, she said. Last time. My pulse roared in my ears. Who? I asked. Ruth shook her head. I never saw their face, she said. But I heard them say your name. My name. Not the way Ruth said it. Not carefully. Not gently. Like a claim. I felt the floor tilt. Just slightly. Ruth, I whispered. Why didn't you stop me? She closed her eyes. Because you told me not to, she said. You said if I tried, you'd disappear completely. I clenched my hands into fists. Disappear how? Ruth opened her eyes. That, she said, is what we're about to find out. The clock ticked loudly overhead. Outside, the rain began to fall harder again. And somewhere deep inside me, something shifted, not waking, not sleeping, but listening. It wasn't loud. It didn't rush in. It just adjusted. Like something that had been holding its breath for a very long time finally realized it didn't have to anymore. I pressed my feet flat against the floor. The tiles were cold, solid, real. "Ruth," I said carefully, "I need you to tell me exactly what happened after I left last time." She didn't answer right away. She was watching my face again, not the way someone watches for emotion, but the way you watch a horizon, waiting to see if a shape is going to rise out of it. "You walked out calmly," she said, "too calmly." "What does that mean?" I asked. She rubbed her palms together once, slow and deliberate. "It means you weren't scared anymore." That didn't feel like relief. It felt like a warning. "I remember being scared," I said. "I remember that part." Ruth shook her head. "No, you remember the moment before." My chest tightened. "Before what?" "Before you decided," she said. "Decided what?" She leaned forward, elbows on the table. Her voice dropped. "Before you decided that fear wasn't useful anymore." A flicker ran through me, not a memory, not a thought, but recognition. Like hearing a sentence you've finished before. "What did I decide instead?" I asked. Ruth swallowed. "Control." The word sat between us, heavy and exact. "That doesn't sound like me," I said. She met my eyes. "It sounded exactly like you." The diner lights hummed softly overhead. One of them flickered, then steadied. "Tell me about the other person," I said. Ruth's jaw tightened. "You didn't acknowledge them at first," she said. "You walked ahead. They followed." "Close?" I asked. "Yes." "Did they touch me?" She shook her head. "No, but they didn't need to." A chill slid down my arms. "Did I know them?" I asked. Ruth hesitated. And in that hesitation, I felt it again, that subtle internal shift, that sense of something leaning closer to the surface. "You didn't introduce them," she said carefully. "But when they said your name, you didn't react like a stranger would." "How did I react?" I asked. Ruth's voice softened. "Like you'd been waiting." My stomach dropped. "That doesn't make sense," I said. But even as I said it, something inside me disagreed. "Nothing about that night made sense," Ruth replied. "Except one thing." "What?" I asked. "You trusted them," she said. "Completely." I looked down at my hands. They were steady. Too steady. "Ruth," I said slowly, "what if I'm not forgetting by accident?" Her eyes widened just a fraction. "What do you mean?" she asked. "What if I'm choosing it?" I said. The air between us changed. Ruth leaned back, as if the words themselves had weight. "That's crossed my mind," she admitted. "Did I say anything about that?" I asked. She nodded. "Yes." My heart began to pound, not fast, but deep. "What did I say?" I whispered. Ruth closed her eyes, then opened them. "You said forgetting was safer," she said. "That remembering was what kept breaking you." A faint pressure bloomed behind my eyes. "Breaking me how?" I asked. Ruth didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stood and walked toward the counter, her steps slow, deliberate. She reached beneath it and pulled out a folded piece of paper. This one was newer than the notebook. Crisp, white. She brought it back and slid it across the table. "What's this?" I asked. "You left it," she said. I unfolded the paper. My handwriting stared back at me, neater than I remembered my own being. Controlled, intentional. There were only 3 lines. "If I come back alone, stop me. If I don't, let me go. Do not follow." My breath caught. "Ruth," I said. "I didn't understand it then," she said. "I thought you were being paranoid." "And now?" I asked. Her voice was barely audible. "Now I think you were being careful." "Careful of who?" I asked. Ruth looked toward the door again, then, slowly, toward the sleeping man in the corner booth. My pulse spiked. "You said he comes and goes," I said. "Yes," she replied quickly. But he was here last time, I said. Her eyes snapped back to mine. No, she said. Too fast. That wasn't an answer, I said. Silence stretched. The man shifted in his seat, hat slipping slightly to reveal a sliver of his face. I felt it then, that internal thing, that listening thing sharpen. Focused. Ruth, I said, very quietly. Look at me. She did. You promised to stop me if I came back alone, I continued. You locked the door. You talked. You showed me proof. Yes, she said. But if I didn't come back alone, I trailed off. Ruth's lips parted. You were supposed to let me go, I finished. Her face crumpled just slightly, not with fear, but with regret. I didn't know which it was this time, she said. I couldn't tell. Something clicked into place. Because they don't look like anything, I said. Ruth froze. You didn't see a face, I continued. You just heard my name. She nodded, slowly. And I didn't react like I should have, I said. No, she whispered. Because I already knew they were there, I said. The room felt suddenly too small, too full. The listening inside me wasn't passive anymore. It was alert. How close are they now? I asked. Ruth's eyes filled. I don't know, she said. That's what scares me. The man in the corner booth coughed again, longer this time. I stood. Ruth reached for my arm. Don't. I need to test something, I said. I took one step toward the door. Nothing happened. No ditziness. No blur. Another step. Still steady. Ruth's breathing grew shallow. Say my name, I said suddenly. What? She asked. Say it, I insisted. She did. And something inside me recoiled. Not violently, just firmly. No, I said. That's not how they say it. Ruth stared at me. Who? I swallowed. The one who came with me, I said. They don't say it like you do. The man in the booth went still. Too still. Ruth, I whispered. Unlock the door. Her hand hovered over the deadbolt. Are you alone? She asked. I closed my eyes. Listened. Really listened. For the first time, I didn't feel empty. I felt crowded. I don't think I ever was, I said. The lock clicked. Not open. Not yet. And behind me, very softly, someone said my name. Not aloud, but close enough that my body knew the difference. The sound of my name didn't echo. It didn't linger. It didn't even feel like sound. It felt like pressure, the way air changes before a storm breaks, the way your body reacts before your mind has time to form a thought. I didn't turn around. That felt important. Ruth's hand was still hovering over the lock, frozen mid-motion, like she'd been interrupted by something she didn't want to name. You heard it too, I said. She didn't answer. I watched her throat move as she swallowed. That wasn't me, she said finally. I know, I replied. The diner lights flickered again. This time they stayed dimmer, casting longer shadows across the floor. The man in the corner booth hadn't moved. Not a cough, not a shift, nothing. Ruth, I said quietly, when I left last time, did I look back? She frowned. Why would you ask that? Just answer me, I said. She hesitated, then shook her head. No, you didn't look back once. That made my chest tighten. I always look back, I said. I check doors, windows, reflections. She stared at me. You didn't. I nodded slowly. Because that meant something had already convinced me there was nothing to check. I took another step toward the door. My body still felt steady. No dizziness, no static in my vision. Whatever usually took me down wasn't happening, which meant something else was holding me up. Ruth, I said, did I thank you before I left? Her eyes flicked up. Yes. For what? For keeping your promise, she said. The words slid into place like a puzzle piece I didn't want. What promise? I asked. She looked down at her hands. You said I'd know when it mattered. I almost laughed. That sounded like me. The careful version. The version that leaves instructions because she doesn't trust herself to be present later. The version that plans for failure. What did I say next? I asked. Ruth closed her eyes. You said, if this works, I won't remember you. A strange ache bloomed in my chest. That hurt, she added softly. I'm sorry, I said automatically. She shook her head. You weren't cruel, just resigned. I tried to picture myself that way, calm, deliberate, already halfway gone. It didn't feel foreign. It felt rehearsed. My gaze slid back to the corner booth. The man's hat still shadowed his face, but his posture had changed. Straighter now. Alert. Watching. Not pretending not to be. That's not a coincidence, I murmured. Ruth followed my gaze. What? Him, I said. He's too still. She shook her head. A little too quickly. He's harmless. Comes in sometimes to sleep. Keeps to himself. Does he pay? I asked. Yes, she said, then corrected herself. Usually. Did he last time? I pressed. Her silence answered before she could. I took another step. This time, the floor creaked. The man's head tilted just a fraction. Ruth's hand finally left the lock. Don't go toward him, she said. I'm not, I replied. I'm going toward the truth. That's the same thing, she said. I stopped halfway between the booth and the door. Ruth, I said, you've been protecting me from something. Yes, she said without hesitation. What if you've been protecting the wrong version of me? That landed. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. What do you mean? She asked. I mean, I said carefully, what if the version of me that forgets isn't the victim? The diner felt suddenly too quiet. Even the refrigerator hum seemed to pause. Ruth's eyes widened slightly. That's not... What if the forgetting is the damage? I continued. Not the cure. She shook her head. You were scared. Yes, I said, but I'm scared now too. And I'm still standing. I waited for the dizziness. It didn't come. The man in the booth shifted his weight. The air changed again, heavier this time. You said I trusted the person who came with me, I said. Ruth nodded. Completely. What if I trusted them because they helped me forget? I asked. Ruth's voice dropped. Why would anyone want that? I looked at my hands. Steady, calm, too calm. Because forgetting makes people manageable, I said. The word hung there. Manageable. The man stood up, slowly, deliberately. He didn't rush. He didn't speak. He just took off his hat and placed it on the table. I finally saw his face. It was ordinary. That was the worst part. Middle-aged, clean-shaven, kind eyes, if you didn't look too long. The kind of face you'd forget as soon as you turned away. I don't think you should be standing, he said. His voice was gentle, concerned, the exact tone you'd use with someone fragile. My spine stiffened. That's how you said it, I murmured. He smiled slightly. Said what? My name, I said. You say it like that. Ruth gasped softly. You shouldn't remember that, the man said. There it was. Not surprise. Not confusion. Confirmation. Why not? I asked. He took a step closer. Ruth moved between us instantly. No, she said. You can't. He stopped, hands raised in surrender. I'm not here to hurt her, he said. That's what you said last time. Ruth shot back. His eyes flicked to her, annoyed now. And I didn't. No, I said quietly. You helped me disappear. He looked at me, then really looked. Not at my body. At whatever was looking back through my eyes. You asked me to, he said. My breath caught. I didn't ask you to erase me, I said. No, he agreed. You asked me to quiet you. That word again. Quiet. Like turning down a radio. Like lowering a voice that's inconvenient. What do? I asked. He hesitated just long enough. I help people compartmentalize, he said. When remembering becomes dangerous. To who? I asked. His jaw tightened. To themselves. That's not an answer, I said. You saw something, he said, changing tactics. Something you couldn't integrate. Because someone made sure I couldn't, I replied. Ruth's hand tightened on my arm. Tell her the truth, she said. All of it. He sighed. You don't remember the file, he said to me. A sharp image flashed a manila folder. My name printed cleanly across the top. You told me not to open it, he continued. But you also told me if I ever walked away with you, that meant you couldn't. My heart began to pound harder now. What was in it? I asked. He studied my face, weighing. Evidence, he said, of something you were never supposed to see. Who wasn't? I asked. He didn't answer. Ruth stepped forward. You promised her safety. I gave her control, he snapped. That's more than safety. By breaking her into pieces? Ruth demanded. She chose it, he said. I felt it then, the crack, the place where the truth wanted to come through. You didn't break me, I said. You separated me. He looked startled. That's different, I continued. Breaking destroys. Separating preserves. His smile faded. You remember more than you should, he said. I remember enough, I replied, to know this wasn't about protecting me. I took a step closer to him. For the first time, my body wavered. Just slightly. There it was. The edge. You said remembering would break me, I said. But what if forgetting lets someone else use what I can't? He didn't deny it. That was everything. What did I see? I asked. His gaze dropped. A pattern, he said. Something systemic. Something that didn't want witnesses. Names? I pressed. Enough to make people nervous, he said. Ruth inhaled sharply. That's why she keeps coming back, she said. Isn't it? He nodded once. The part of her that remembers doesn't stay buried. I laughed softly. Bad design, I said. You should have known that. He looked at me with something like regret. I underestimated you, he admitted. Yes, I said. You did. The dizziness surged. Harder this time. The room tilted. The lights blurred. Ruth grabbed my shoulders. Stay with me. I am, I gasped. I just need to decide something. The man stepped back. Don't, he said. If you push through this, you won't be able to undo it. I met his eyes. That's the point. The pressure built memories, lining up behind a door that had been shut too long. You locked the wrong door, I whispered. The room went white. Not unconsciousness. Awareness. And when it cleared, I was still standing, breathing hard, whole in a way I hadn't been before. The man was backing toward the door now. Fear, real fear in his eyes. Ruth stared at me like she was seeing someone return from underwater. You're still here, she whispered. Yes, I said. And for the first time, I knew exactly who here was. Not the woman who drifted through days with a sense of mild disconnection. Not the one who apologized too quickly, who second-guessed her own reactions, who woke up with a heaviness she couldn't name. This version of me didn't feel loud or powerful. She felt aligned, like a compass needle finally settling. The dizziness receded, not all at once, but in layers. The edges of the room sharpened. The hum of the refrigerator returned. I could hear Ruth breathing fast, uneven, real. The man took another step back. You don't understand what you're doing, he said. His voice had changed. The gentleness was still there, but now it was strained, like a script being read under pressure. I understand enough, I replied. My voice sounded steadier than I felt, but it didn't shake. That mattered. You're pushing past a safeguard, he said. There's a reason we don't let everything surface at once. We. The word told me more than he intended. I tilted my head. How many others? He hesitated. Ruth noticed. Answer her. His jaw tightened. It's not relevant. That's a yes, I said. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was crowded with implications. I looked at Ruth. How many times did I ask you if this felt wrong? She blinked, caught off guard. Every time, she said. You always ask that first. And what did you say? I asked. She swallowed. I said it felt like someone was standing between you and yourself. I nodded. That sounded right. The man exhaled sharply. You're framing this like some kind of violation. It is, I said. No, he countered. It's intervention. Intervention requires consent, I said. Not just once, continuously. You gave it, he said, repeatedly. Yes, I agreed. Because you presented forgetting as the only option. He didn't deny that either. That's not consent, I continued. That's coercion with better lighting. Ruth's hand tightened on my arm, not to stop me, to anchor me. The man glanced toward the door. The lock was still engaged. You're not leaving here with all of this, he said. I'm not leaving you with it either, I replied. The clock above the grill ticked loudly, as if it had grown impatient. Tell me about the file, I said. He shook his head. You don't want. I do, I interrupted. I want exactly what I asked for before you decided to curate me. That landed. He looked at me for a long moment, reassessing. You were investigating a series of intake discrepancies, he said slowly. Medical facilities, behavioral units, a private contractor operating under the guise of crisis response. Ruth's face went pale. That's real? She asked. Yes, he said. Very. I felt something click into place, not a memory, but a structure. Like finding the outline of a room before you see the furniture. You realized the intervention protocols weren't about care, I said. They were about containment, he replied. Of whom? I pressed. People who noticed patterns, he said. People who didn't stabilize the way they were supposed to. People like me, I said. He didn't argue. I stepped back toward the booth and sat down, suddenly aware of how long I'd been standing. My legs trembled slightly now that the adrenaline was fading. Ruth moved with me, staying close. You weren't the only one, the man said, but you were the first who remembered enough to start connecting names. Names. That word stirred something deep. You told me I saw something I couldn't integrate, I said. That wasn't true. I integrated it just fine. You couldn't live with it, he corrected. That's different, I said. He sighed, rubbing his temples. You were having dissociative episodes. Blackouts. You were losing time. Because I was being drugged, I said calmly. His eyes snapped up. You don't know that, he said. I smiled just slightly. I do, I replied. Because that part of me never stopped paying attention. The man looked genuinely unsettled now. What are you talking about? He asked. The part you couldn't quiet, I said. The part that noticed how the episodes always followed appointments. How the nausea felt chemical, not emotional. How the forgetting had edges. Ruth let out a shaky breath. You never told me that. I couldn't, I said softly. That part didn't have language yet, just alarms. The man took another step back. You're making this dangerous, he said. For who? I asked. For everyone, he replied. I shook my head. No. For systems that rely on silence. That was when the man's composure finally cracked. You think you can just walk away with this and nothing will happen? He snapped. You think remembering fixes it? No, I said. I think remembering changes it. He laughed once, harshly. You don't have proof. I reached into my pocket. Slowly, deliberately. Ruth sucked in a breath. I pulled out my phone. You forgot about this, I said. His eyes widened. I didn't, he said quickly. You did, I replied. Because you never checked the one place I never let you near. I unlocked the screen and scrolled. There's a voice memo, I continued. Recorded the night I came here the first time, before I lost consciousness. That's impossible, he said. It wasn't then, I replied. You just didn't know to look for it. I hit play. My own voice filled the diner, strained, urgent, unmistakably me. If you're hearing this, they're closer than you think. Don't trust how calm you feel. That's not relief. That's sedation. Ruth covered her mouth. The man went very still. The recording continued. If I forget, it means they succeeded. If I come back here, it's because some part of me is still trying to surface. Ruth, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I didn't know how else to keep you safe. Ruth's eyes filled with tears. And if you're with me right now, my recorded voice said, you already know I'm not broken. You just need me quiet. I stopped the recording. The silence that followed was thick, electric. You left that, Ruth whispered. Yes, I said. For this version of me. The man stared at the phone like it might bite him. You can't use that, he said. It's not admissible. It's mine, I said. And it's enough to start. Start what? He demanded. I stood again, feeling the last of the dizziness settle into something manageable. A pattern doesn't need a courtroom to be dangerous, I said. It just needs witnesses who stop doubting themselves. I turned to Ruth. You kept me alive, I said, even when I made that impossible. She shook her head, tears spilling now. You kept coming back. I nodded. Because some doors don't stay locked. The man backed toward the wall now, cornered by nothing but the truth finally standing upright. You don't know what you're unleashing, he said. I met his eyes. I do, I replied. I'm unleashing myself. The lock on the door clicked. This time, Ruth turned it. Unlocked. The sound felt different now. Not final. Intentional. I walked past the man without touching him. He flinched anyway. As I reached the door, I paused. One more thing, I said. He looked up. You were wrong about one thing. What? He asked hoarsely. I didn't forget because I was weak, I said. I forgot because remembering made me dangerous to the wrong people. I opened the door. Cold air rushed in, sharp and grounding. Behind me, Ruth said my name. The way she said it, I turned back. I'll come back, I said. She nodded. I know. And as I stepped into the rain, fully present, fully myself, I understood something with absolute clarity. The door hadn't locked me in. It had kept me from walking out too soon. The bell above the diner door didn't ring when I tried to push it open again. Because Ruth had already turned the deadbolt. For a second I stood there with my palm pressed flat against the glass, looking at my own reflection, my face faintly doubled by the neon open sign that suddenly felt like a lie. Outside, the street looked normal, in the way a place looks normal when it's learned how to hide. A couple of cars passed, tires whispering on damp pavement. A man walked a dog like it was any other night. The world kept moving while I stood trapped between Ruth's hand on the lock and the hard knot forming in my throat. Behind me, Ruth didn't rush. She didn't panic. She moved the way someone moves when they've already lived through the worst part and are just trying to keep you from stepping into it too fast. Sit, she said softly, like she was asking, not ordering. But her eyes didn't leave mine. I swallowed. Ruth, what is this? She didn't answer the question, not directly. She reached under the counter and slid a glass of water toward me, slow and careful. The water was so still it looked heavy. Drink, she said. I'm not, I started, but my voice snagged. My hands were already trembling in a way I didn't recognize. Not fear, not exactly. Something closer to my body, remembering something before my mind caught up. Ruth watched my face like she was listening for a sound only she could hear. You feel it, she said. What? The drop? She answered, and her voice went thinner on that word, like it cost her. Right before you go down. My stomach tightened. I set my fingertips on the counter just to feel something solid. I'm fine, I lied. Ruth's mouth twitched, like she almost smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Honey, she murmured. I've watched people say that right before their knees forget how to work. A chair scraped somewhere behind the kitchen door. It wasn't loud, but it was the kind of sound that changed the air. Ruth turned her head a fraction toward the back, then looked at me again. Don't look, she whispered. Of course I looked. The kitchen door swung open, and a man stepped halfway out, tall, broad shoulders, a stained apron tied at the waist. His hands were clean, but the kind of clean that comes from scrubbing too hard. Eddie, I remembered him from earlier. He'd been quiet, eyes always down, like he didn't want his face recorded in anyone's memory. Now he was staring at me like he'd been told to. He didn't speak. He just held something in his hand. A phone. My chest went tight. "That's mine," I said, before I even knew how I knew. Eddie's eyes flicked to Ruth, waiting. Ruth didn't react. She didn't even blink. "Put it down," she told him, calm as poured coffee. He hesitated. Then he set the phone on the counter screen facing down, like it was ashamed of itself. Ruth slid it toward me, but didn't let go. Her fingers stayed on the edge. "Before you touch it," she said, "I need you to promise me something." I let out a sharp breath. "You want me to promise I won't pass out?" Her gaze held. "No." That surprised me more than the lock. "I need you to promise," she said. "You won't run." My throat went dry. "Run from what?" Ruth's voice dropped. "From the truth." Something in me tried to laugh small and disbelieving, but my face wouldn't cooperate. My body was listening too hard. "Ruth," I said carefully, "what did you do with my phone?" "I didn't," she said. "Eddie did. Because he panicked. Because he saw the name that called you." I froze. "The name that called me?" Ruth's eyes shifted to the dark screen under her hand, then back to mine. "Your phone rang," she said. And when it did, the whole diner changed. A silence stretched between us, tight as string. The kind of silence that says, "You're not ready, but it's happening anyway." Then Ruth pushed the phone to me. "Turn it over," she whispered. My fingers were numb when I flipped it. The screen lit up, and I saw the missed call. Halden. Just that. No first name. Like the phone didn't need one. My stomach turned cold. "Who is Halden?" Ruth's face went still. "Not who," she corrected. "What?" Eddie made a low sound in his throat, like a warning. Ruth shot him a look so sharp it cut the air. "Go back," she told him. Eddie didn't move at first. Ruth's eyes didn't soften. "Now." He disappeared into the kitchen like he'd been swallowed by it. The moment the door shut, Ruth exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since I walked in. "You're not from here," she said. It wasn't a question. I shook my head. "I just drove through." Ruth's gaze held mine. "Then why did he call you?" "I don't know," I said, but my voice sounded wrong in my own ears. Too thin, too unsure. Ruth leaned in, elbows on the counter, and her voice turned into something older, something that sounded like the bottom of a well. "Sometimes," she said, "people don't call because they know you. They call because they finally found you." My skin prickled. "Found me for what?" Ruth opened her mouth, then stopped. "Because the diner lights flickered. Not like a power surge, like someone touched a switch with dirty fingers. The neon open sign buzzed. The ceiling fan slowed for a heartbeat. Then everything steadied again. Except us. Ruth's eyes darted to the window. Her hand went to the key ring at her waist, without thinking. "You didn't tell anyone you were coming here," she said quickly. "No," I whispered. "Not even a friend?" I said no. Ruth's jaw tightened. "Good." My pulse began to thud in my ears. "Why does that matter?" Ruth's lips parted, and her voice came out barely audible. "Because if he called you, he knows you're within reach." A car passed outside, headlights sliding across the diner wall like a slow blade. Ruth didn't move until the light disappeared. Then she said, "Come from behind the counter." "I can't." "Yes," she said, "you can." I hesitated, but my fear had a strange shape now. It wasn't screaming. It was quiet, practical. It wanted me alive. I stepped around the end of the counter, and Ruth guided me toward a small hallway near the bathrooms. The floor back there felt different, older, softer, like it had absorbed too many secrets. She opened a door I hadn't noticed before. It looked like a supply closet. Inside, it wasn't a closet. It was a narrow room with a small desk, a chair, and a monitor mounted on the wall. The kind of monitor that shows security feeds. 4 angles, black and white, grainy, My mouth went dry. What is this? Ruth shut the door behind us and turned the small lock. You're safe in here, she said. For now. I stared at the screen. One camera showed the counter area. Another showed the kitchen doorway. One showed the parking lot outside. And one showed a hallway. Not in the diner, not anywhere I recognized. The hallway looked institutional. Long. Fluorescent lights. A door with a small window. A place that smelled like bleach, even through a screen. My throat tightened. Where is that? Ruth didn't answer right away. She picked up a small remote and hit a button. The feed rewound. My stomach dropped. You record everything? Not everything, she said. Just what matters. The hallway feed rolled back, and I watched a figure move through the frame. A woman. Young. Dark hair pulled back. She wore a hoodie too big for her shoulders, like she'd borrowed it from someone stronger. She stopped at the door, looked over her shoulder, then knocked 3 times. Quick, desperate. The door opened. A man's arm reached out, pulled her in. The door shut. Ruth paused the footage. My voice came out hoarse. Who is she? Ruth's eyes didn't leave the screen. Nina, she said. The name landed in the room like something dropped. And the man? I asked. Ruth's face went hard. Halden's people. I felt my body sway just slightly, and Ruth's hand shot out, steadying my elbow. There, she murmured. That's the drop. I blinked hard. The room tilted for a second. My chest tightened like it was being wrapped. I'm fine, I whispered. But I wasn't even trying to convince her anymore. Ruth's hand stayed on my arm. Breathe. I forced air in, slow. My heart hammered against my ribs like it wanted out. Why are you showing me this? I managed. Ruth finally looked at me fully. Because you walked in here carrying something you don't know you're carrying. What? I said. Am I carrying? Ruth pointed at my phone in my hand. I looked down. The screen was still lit from earlier. The missed call. Halden. Then, before I could think, the phone vibrated. Once. Twice. Incoming call. Halden. My blood went cold. Ruth didn't reach for it. She didn't stop me. She just watched my face like this was the moment she'd been bracing for. Don't answer, she whispered. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering above the green button like it didn't belong to me. The ringing stopped. A second later, a message arrived. A single text. You're closer than you think. My stomach lurched. I turned the phone toward Ruth. What does that mean? Ruth's face didn't change, but something in her eyes did, like grief passing behind glass. It means, she said, voice quiet. He knows where you are. My skin went prickly. How? Ruth reached behind her neck and pulled her collar slightly aside. For a second, I didn't understand why, then I saw it. A small scar. Not a clean surgery scar. A burn mark. Faint but deliberate, like something pressed into skin. What is that? I whispered. Ruth let the collar fall back into place. A reminder, she said, that this town belongs to him. My throat tightened. Why don't you leave? Ruth laughed once, bitter and soft. Because leaving doesn't always mean you get out. The monitor buzzed slightly, and the parking lot camera caught something that made Ruth's whole body go still. A car had pulled in. Slow, deliberate, not the casual drift of a hungry traveler. It parked far from the entrance, like the driver didn't want to be seen, or didn't care if they were. Headlights stayed on. Ruth's hand tightened on the remote. No, she whispered. I stepped closer to the screen. In the glare, I could make out a silhouette behind the wheel. The door opened. A man stepped out. Even in grainy black and white, there was something familiar about the way he moved, like the world made space for him without being asked. He didn't look up at the open sign. He looked straight at the building, like he already knew I was inside. Ruth's voice came out like a warning prayer. He sent someone. My mouth went dry. Who is that? Ruth didn't answer. She hit another camera angle closer to the entrance. The man's face came into view for half a second under the diner awning, and I felt my body react before my brain did. A sharp spike of recognition. Not because I knew him, because my body did. Like a memory under the skin. Like a smell from childhood that makes you sick before you remember why. I took a step back, too fast, and my heel hit the chair. Ruth caught my arm again. "Hey," she whispered urgent. "Promise me you won't pass out." I swallowed hard. "You said that wasn't the promise." Ruth's eyes flashed with something like fear. "It is now," she said. Then she reached into her apron pocket and pulled out something small. A folded piece of paper. Old. Soft with handling. She pressed it into my palm and closed my fingers around it. "What is this?" I whispered. Ruth leaned close, her voice shaking for the first time. "It's the reason you can't run," she said. "And the reason he called you." My hands trembled as I unfolded the paper. It was a photo. Not printed recently. An old photo faded at the edges. A woman standing outside a building that looked like the hallway on the monitor. Her smile was thin, forced. Beside her, a man. His face was half-shadowed, but the posture was unmistakable. The same posture as the man who just stepped out of the car. Behind them, in the background, barely noticeable. A little girl, holding the woman's hand. I stared until my eyes burned. Because the little girl had my face? Not exactly, but enough that my stomach fell through the floor. I looked up at Ruth, voice barely there. "That's..." Ruth's eyes filled, but she didn't let the tears fall. She just nodded once, slow, like saying it made it real. "That's you," she whispered, "and you were never just passing through." Outside, the diner door handle jiggled. Once, twice, then a knock. Not loud, not violent, just confident. Like whoever was on the other side knew time was on their side. Ruth's voice turned to steel. "Whatever happens," she whispered, "do not open that door." Another knock. Then, a voice muffled through the walls, calm as a Sunday morning. "Ma'am," the voice said, "we're looking for someone." Ruth's eyes locked on mine, and in that second, I understood why she'd locked the door when I tried to leave. Because the danger wasn't outside the diner. It was arriving for me, and Ruth had decided quietly, stubbornly that I wasn't going to face it alone. The knock came again. Not louder, not harder, just closer somehow, like sound could lean. "Ma'am," the voice said again, calm and practiced. "We just want to talk." Ruth didn't move. Neither did I. The small back room felt tighter now, as if the walls had decided they were done pretending to be neutral. The monitor hummed softly, showing the man outside shifting his weight, patient as a cat. "You don't have to open it," Ruth whispered. "I know," I said. My voice surprised me. It sounded steady, anchored, like it belonged to someone who'd already decided something important. The door handle rattled once more. Not a test, a reminder. I looked down at the photograph still in my hand. The little girl's face stared back at me, half familiar, half stranger. My face before it learned how to disappear. "Ruth," I said quietly, "how long have you had this?" Her breath caught. "Since before you remembered how to forget." That landed like a bruise. "Did I give it to you?" I asked. She nodded. "You said if he ever came back for you, it meant you were ready." "Ready for what?" She didn't answer right away. The man outside cleared his throat. "Miss," he called, still polite, still distant. "I know you're in there." Ruth's hand tightened around mine. "You were ready to stop running," she said. The words slid into place like they'd been waiting. "I don't remember any of this," I said. "No," Ruth replied gently. "But you remember enough." The monitor flickered, and the camera angle shifted slightly as the man stepped closer to the glass. His face was clearer now, lines at the corners of his mouth, eyes that looked kind until you noticed they didn't move when he smiled. He raised his hand and knocked again. Louder this time. "Miss," he said, "we're concerned about you." Concern. That word again. The same word people use when they want something from you and don't want to admit it. I felt the old instinct flare. The one that urged me to shrink, to go quiet, to let someone else decide what happened next. But it didn't take. It slid off me like rain. "Ruth?" I said. "What happened to Nina?" Ruth's face went pale. "She didn't come back," she said. My stomach dropped. "But she wasn't the first," Ruth continued, voice low. "And she won't be the last if this keeps working." "What keeps working?" I asked. Ruth met my eyes. "Convincing women they're unstable when they notice too much." The man outside knocked again. Sharper now. "We can do this the easy way," he said. "You don't want to make things worse for yourself." Ruth's jaw set. "I've heard that exact sentence," she murmured. "Right before they took my sister." The world tilted. "You never told me that," I whispered. "I didn't think I'd need to," she said. "I thought keeping my head down would be enough." Another knock. Harder. "Last warning," the man said, the calm beginning to fray at the edges. Something inside me rose. Not anger. Clarity. "Ruth," I said, "unlock the door." Her eyes snapped to mine. "No, I'm not asking because I'm afraid," I said. "I'm asking because he is." The knock stopped. Silence pressed in from the other side. Ruth studied my face the way she had the first night, like she was checking for signs of collapse. She didn't find them. Slowly, reluctantly, she reached for the deadbolt. The click sounded impossibly loud. The door opened just a crack. Cold air rushed in, sharp and clean. The man smiled. "There you are," he said. "We've been worried." I stepped forward, placing myself between him and Ruth without thinking. "You found me," I said. "Congratulations." His smile tightened. "You're disoriented." "No," I said. "I'm oriented differently now." He glanced past me, eyes flicking toward the hallway. "Miss Ruth," he said smoothly, "this doesn't concern you." "It does," she replied. "Every time." His gaze hardened. "You're interfering." I laughed once, soft and humorless. "That's rich, coming from you." He turned his attention fully back to me. "You've been through something traumatic," he said. "Your history shows." "My history shows what you wrote down," I interrupted. "Not what happened." A flicker of irritation crossed his face. "Let's go somewhere private," he said. "We can clear this up." "No," I replied. "We can do this here." His eyes narrowed. "You're not thinking clearly." "That's your favorite line," I said. "Right before you decide for someone else." He took a step closer. Ruth shifted beside me. "Back up," she said. The man ignored her. "I can help you," he told me, lowering his voice. "You don't want to carry this." I met his gaze and felt it, the familiar pull, the suggestion of relief if I just let go again. I didn't. "You're right," I said. "I don't want to carry it alone." His brow furrowed. "That's why I'm done carrying it for you." I pulled out my phone. His eyes flicked to it. "Put that away," he said sharply. I didn't. "I have names," I said. "Dates, patterns, and a recording that proves you knew exactly what you were doing." Ruth inhaled sharply. The man's smile vanished. "You don't understand the consequences," he said. "I do," I replied. "I just don't think they're mine anymore." He lunged. Not violently, not obviously, just fast enough to make a point. Ruth moved first. She slammed the door shut and threw the deadbolt back in place with a force that rattled the frame. The man's fist hit the glass once. Hard. The sound cracked through the diner like a gunshot. I staggered back, heart racing now, the old dizziness surging up from my knees. Ruth grabbed my shoulders. "Stay with me," she said urgently. "Don't go down." "I'm here," I gasped. "I'm here." The pounding came again, angrier now. "You're making a mistake," the man shouted. Ruth pulled me toward the back room, slamming the door behind us. The monitor showed him pacing now, phone pressed to his ear. "Calling someone." "Ruth," I whispered, sliding down into the chair. "This is where I usually lose it." Her grip tightened. "Not tonight." My vision blurred. The old fog crept in at the edges, seductive and familiar. I closed my eyes, not to escape, to remember. The hallway, the fluorescent lights, the file, the name at the top, mine. I forced my eyes open. I remember, I said hoarsely. Ruth's face crumpled with relief. Say it, she urged. Say it out loud. They didn't help me, I said. They silenced me. Yes, she whispered, and I let them, I continued, voice shaking but clear, because I thought being quiet was the same as being safe. The pounding stopped. On the monitor, the man stood very still, watching, waiting. I'm not quiet anymore, I said. Ruth squeezed my hand. No, you're not. My phone buzzed again. A new message. This isn't how it ends. I stared at the screen, then typed back. No, this is where it starts. I hit send. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, not close, but coming. Ruth looked at me in surprise. You called someone, she asked. I shook my head. I didn't. The sirens grew louder. The man's head snapped up. For the first time, real fear crossed his face. Ruth's eyes widened. Who did? I smiled weakly. Me, I said. 3 versions ago. Her mouth fell open. I pulled up a scheduled message on my phone emails, sent to journalists, files uploaded automatically, a failsafe triggered by a single GPS ping. I told myself, I said, if I ever came back here and stayed conscious long enough, it meant it was time. The man backed away from the door. The sirens were close now. Ruth laughed through tears. You planned this. I had to, I said, because I knew they'd count on me forgetting. Red and blue lights washed across the diner windows. The man disappeared into the night. I sagged back in the chair, shaking now not from fear, but release. Ruth knelt in front of me, hands warm and solid on my knees. You did it, she said softly. No, I replied. We did. The door rattled again, different this time. Firm, official. A voice called out, clear and authoritative. Police, open up. Ruth stood and turned the lock. As the door opened and the night rushed in, I felt something settle inside me. Not closure, commitment, because I knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the first time I'd stayed awake long enough to tell it. The word tell used to feel fragile to me. Like if I said something out loud, it would fall apart in my mouth. Like truth was only safe if it stayed folded inside my chest. That night, it didn't feel like that. The door opened wider, and the cold rushed in, carrying the smell of wet asphalt and something metallic adrenaline. Maybe. 2 officers stepped inside, rain slicking their jackets, hands already resting near their belts without quite touching them. Everyone okay in here? One of them asked. Ruth answered before I could. Yes, she said. Her voice didn't shake. But he isn't. She nodded toward the parking lot, where the red and blue lights painted the diner walls in slow, patient pulses, like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I stood up on my own. That mattered. The officers noticed it too, the way people do when they're expecting collapse and don't get it. One of them glanced at me again, more carefully this time, as if recalibrating. What happened? The other officer asked. I opened my mouth. For half a second, the old reflex stirred the instinct to soften, to summarize, to make it easier for everyone else by making it smaller. I didn't follow it. He tried to take me, I said. Not tonight, not physically, but he's been doing it for a long time. The officer frowned. Who is he? I didn't look outside when I answered. Halden, I said, and people who work for him. Ruth let out a slow breath beside me. Not relief, confirmation. The officers exchanged a look, the kind that says, this just crossed a line. One of them spoke into his radio, low and quick. Words clipped into codes I didn't understand, but recognized anyway. Process had started. They asked us to step outside. The rain hit my face like a reset button. Cold, sharp, real. I welcomed it. Let it soak into my hair, my clothes, my skin proof. I was here, fully, in this moment. A paramedic approached, already pulling gloves on. Ma'am, Can you tell me your name? She asked gently. I said it, without hesitation, without dizziness, without that strange hollowing out sensation that used to follow. She smiled. Good. Any pain? Lightheadedness? I shook my head. No. And for the first time, that wasn't a lie that needed holding together. They asked me to sit in the back of the ambulance anyway, protocol, they said. Ruth stood nearby, arms folded tight across her chest, eyes never leaving me. When the doors closed, the world narrowed to white light and clean surfaces and the steady beep of a monitor. I focused on the sound. It stayed steady. Heart rates elevated, the paramedic said, not alarmed. But you're stable. I almost laughed. Stable. That word had been used against me before, twisted into something that meant quiet instead of safe. Tonight, it felt earned. An officer leaned in at the door. We're going to ask you some questions, he said. Not all tonight. Just enough to start. I nodded. I have files, I said. Recordings. Emails. They're already out there. His eyebrows lifted. Out there, how? Journalists, I said. Advocacy groups. A couple of lawyers who specialize in this exact thing. He paused, then nodded once. Okay, that helps. It wasn't gratitude I felt then. It was balance. For so long, everything had felt tipped, like the truth was heavier on one side, dragging me down, while everyone else stood upright. Now it felt shared. Ruth climbed into the ambulance and sat beside me without asking. You didn't disappear, she said quietly. I met her eyes. Neither did you. She swallowed. I thought maybe this was the night I'd finally watch you go. I reached for her hand. You didn't let me. No, she said. You didn't let yourself. That was closer to the truth. The ambulance doors opened again. The rain had eased into a soft mist, the kind that makes everything look gentler than it is. Across the parking lot, I saw the officers talking to someone else, now another man, this one trying very hard to look cooperative. Not Heldon. Someone lower. A piece. Not the hand. They didn't catch him, Ruth said, following my gaze. I know, I replied. She looked at me sharply. You're not upset? I am, I said, just not surprised. Halden had never been the kind of man who stood in the open when consequences arrived. He sent people. He waited. He trusted systems to protect him because they usually did. Usually. The paramedic finished her checks and stepped back. You're clear to go, she said. But someone may want you to come in tomorrow. Statement. Follow-up. I'll be there, I said. And I meant it. They let us walk back into the diner for our things. The place looked different now, smaller, maybe. Or maybe I was just bigger in it. The booth, the counter, the bell above the door. All the same objects. None of the same weight. Ruth picked up her apron from behind the counter and folded it carefully. What will you do? She asked. Tonight? I said. Yes. I thought about it. I'm going to sleep, I said. Not disappear sleep, just sleep. She smiled, small and tired. Good. And tomorrow, I continued, I'm going to start telling this story again. Slowly, carefully, to the right people. Ruth nodded. They won't like that. I know, I said. That's how I'll know I'm doing it right. We stepped outside together. The night had that washed, quiet feeling it gets after something breaks open. The police lights were gone now. Just street lamps and wet pavement and the hum of a town pretending it hadn't noticed. At my car, Ruth hesitated. You know, she said, he'll try to rewrite this. I know, I replied. He already has. And you? She asked. What if it happens again, the forgetting? I opened the car door, then paused. It might, I said honestly. Trauma doesn't vanish just because it's named. She waited. But now, I continued, I'll know what it's trying to protect me from, and I won't confuse silence with safety anymore. Ruth nodded slowly. If you ever come back, I will, I said. But next time, it won't be because I'm lost. She watched me drive away, her shape shrinking in the mirror until the diner lights swallowed her whole. On the road, with the wipers ticking steady and the rain finally giving up, I felt something settle fully into place. Not closure, responsibility. Because staying awake wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was choosing, every day after, not to go back to sleep. And this time, I was ready for that too. I didn't dream that night. Not the way people usually mean it, no images, no stories, no replayed fear. Just darkness, clean and uninterrupted. When I woke up, the light coming through the motel curtains felt earned. My body ached in a dull, honest way. The kind of ache that comes from adrenaline wearing off, not from injury. My head felt heavy, but not foggy. For the first time in longer than I could remember, my thoughts lined up instead of colliding. I lay there for a while, listening, not for danger, for myself. The phone on the bedside table buzzed once. Not a call, a notification, then another, and another. I didn't touch it right away. I let the sound exist without reacting to it, a small test, one I passed. When I finally picked it up, I didn't flinch. There were emails, missed calls, messages from numbers I didn't recognize, and a few I did. Journalists, mostly. One subject line read, "We received your files." Another, "Can we talk today?" I set the phone down again, not because I was overwhelmed, because I understood something now. Urgency had been used against me for years. Everything had to be immediate, or it was framed as a failure. I wasn't playing that game anymore. I showered slowly, let the hot water ground me, watched my hands move through steam like they belonged to someone I trusted. When I dressed, I chose clothes deliberately, not to hide, not to perform, just to exist. Outside, the town looked the same. That was unsettling in its own way. The gas station clerk smiled when I paid for coffee. A woman walked past with her kid, scolding gently about shoes. A man loaded lumber into the back of a truck. Life intact, unaware. Or maybe aware and choosing not to look too closely. I drove without music. The quiet didn't scare me anymore. By the time I reached the small office building, Ruth had written down for me the legal aid clinic 2 towns over. My hands were steady on the wheel. Inside, the waiting room smelled like paper and cheap disinfectant. A woman at the desk looked up and said my name before I introduced myself. That still startled me. "Come on back," she said kindly. "They're ready for you." They. Plural. That mattered too. The meeting wasn't dramatic. No raised voices, no shocked gasps. Just careful questions and long pauses where someone wrote things down and asked me to repeat myself, not because they didn't believe me, but because they wanted to get it right. That difference was everything. I told them about the forgetting, about the way concern had been weaponized, about the language used unstable, dissociative, non-compliant, words that sounded clinical but landed like verdicts. I told them about Nina, about Ruth's sister, about Halden's people and the way they never touched you until you were already isolated enough to doubt yourself. When I finished, one of the attorneys leaned back and said, very calmly, "This isn't just misconduct." I waited. "This is pattern abuse," she continued. "Systemic, and you're not the only one." The room felt like it tilted, but I didn't. "How many?" I asked. She didn't give me a number. She didn't need to. "Enough," she said. The word echoed the same one Ruth had used. I signed paperwork. I gave consent. I declined a few things and accepted others. I asked for time where I needed it and took it when it was offered. Each decision felt like muscle memory, returning not all at once, but reliably. When I left, the sun was lower in the sky. Late afternoon. The kind of light that makes everything look softer than it is. My phone buzzed again. This time, I answered. Ruth's voice came through, thin with static but steady. They came back. My chest tightened. "When?" "This morning," she said. 2 men. Polite. Asking questions. "Did you answer?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "Just not the ones they wanted." I smiled despite myself. Are you okay? Yes, she said. Then, quieter. Are you? I thought about it. I'm awake, I said. That's new. She laughed softly. That sounds like you. Does it? I asked. Yes, she said. The you that didn't stay long enough to doubt herself. We talked logistics, safety, who to call, what not to say. The conversation was practical, grounded. Two people building something slowly instead of reacting to a fire. Before we hung up, Ruth hesitated. You know they'll try to discredit you, she said. They'll say you're unreliable. I know, I replied. They'll say you imagined it. I know. They'll say you wanted attention. I closed my eyes. I know. And? She asked. And they'll be wrong, I said. That's the difference now. The weeks that followed were quieter than I expected. There were interviews, yes. Statements. A hearing date set and postponed and reset again. But there were also ordinary things, grocery lists, laundry, walks taken without purpose, beyond movement. I learned the shape of my forgetting. It didn't vanish. It softened. Sometimes I'd lose a word, a moment, a stretch of time. But now, instead of panic, there was context. Instead of shame, curiosity. What am I protecting myself from right now? Often, the answer was simple: rest. Other times, it was grief. I started writing again, not for publication, not yet. Just notes, fragments, reminders written to myself in a voice I trusted. You are not dramatic. You are responding to reality. If it feels heavy, it's because it is. One afternoon, months later, I returned to the diner. Not because I was pulled there, because I chose it. The bell rang when I opened the door. Same sound, different meaning. Ruth looked up from the counter and smiled, a real one this time. Tired but unguarded. You're early, she said. I wanted to see it in daylight, I replied. The place looked smaller, friendlier, less like a threshold. We sat in the same booth. That mattered too. You stayed awake, she said. I did, I replied. You stayed too. She nodded. Leaving isn't always escape. We talked about the town, about small things, about nothing at all. The kind of conversation that doesn't try to prove anything. Before I left, Ruth reached under the counter and handed me something. The photograph. I think it belongs with you now, she said. I took it. The little girl's face didn't frighten me anymore. It steadied me. Outside, the road stretched ahead, familiar and new at the same time. I got in my car and adjusted the mirror, catching my reflection clear, undoubled. As I drove, I thought about the word awake. It doesn't mean alert all the time. It doesn't mean unafraid. It doesn't mean untouched. It means present enough to choose. Halden didn't disappear. Men like him rarely do. But his certainty fractured. Files moved. Questions spread. Silence broke in places it had held for decades. And me? I didn't become a symbol. I became a person again, which turned out to be far more disruptive. The last thing I wrote in my notebook that night was simple. The door locked behind me once. Now I know how to open it. And this time, I didn't rush through. I stayed. Thank you for watching. Your trust, your time, and your support truly mean everything. If this video brought you value, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps this channel reach those who need it most. Stay focused, keep growing, and I'll see you in the next video.